All right, so welcome to Teh Rascal Bricks. I have a YouTube channel, but I figured I'd start on Twitch as well to be able to share some of these builds with everyone else, help them relive some childhood memories, things along that nature. We've got a couple of things lined up for us. Um, so basically, at this point, what we're doing is we're going to list the sets that I had as a child for the most part, growing up. They're going to be listed in order of release year, with the themes listed next to them, as you can see here, with the set number and everything, and then a small picture. Again, this will be posted on YouTube after the fact in case you missed the stream, and then the goal is to start streaming these builds like once or a week or so. So, and then chat can potentially vote on which build they want to see next, as long as it fits within the time schedule that I have at the moment. Um, some of these builds may take more than one day or one stream to be able to do. I've got a few complicated and larger ones in here. But yeah, so let's get started. Basically, the first set that I owned as a kid was released in 1985. This was the Gamma 5 Lasercraft. Um, this is basically part of the Space Classic theme. And I'm not going to list all of these. Basically, I'm just going to scroll down in order, and you can kind of get an idea of which sets there are there. I'll mention some of the more notable ones as we go through. So one of the other things that was uh, basically noted was that model team used to be a theme back in the day. They don't have those anymore. Now it's more of a Technic type of role. But this was one of my favorites, building all the time. It actually had two different builds. You could do this build as a Jeep or another build as a tow truck. Um, then we have the mobile recovery vehicle, which is next, which is again a space classic theme. Same with this one here, the terrestrial rover. This was a 1987 one. Then I had a Blacktron set, which they started introducing some of the more um, themed space characters, and in this case, these were supposedly the bad guys. Um, So yeah, I believe they've redone this set recently as well. I'm pretty for sure they redid this set like in 2020 or 2021, somewhere around there. They released a new version of it. Um, some of these obviously you'll never probably see again. So again, I'll just keep scrolling through some of these. This one's a turboprop plane, one of my first sets I ever had as a child as well. I had a lot of fun with these. And again, when I go to build these, I've actually I have all the pieces, and I have backfilled whatever was missing from growing up as a kid. Um, so everything is here. The only thing that may be missing in any of these sets would be stickers. That would be the only thing that may be missing in a couple of these, because either you can't find them or they're just insanely expensive to try to get for sets like this. Here's one of the larger sets one of my first larger sets. It's the Motor Speedway, a classic town theme. Another space theme is Futuron, which is also very popular back in the day. So this was a little hovercraft that Futuron made. Then you going on to the classic town themes, which is this copter truck, a camper. This is also probably one of the largest I think I had growing up as a kid. It's the Metro Park and Service Tower. It's actually two base plates and then basically a service park with a car wash and a gas station. It was Shell themed as well, which was very neat. Um, and then below that is my first Technic set that I got as a kid. And so you can see you could build one of these three items. Yeah, I was supposed to be. It was supposed to be scrolled down. Let me see if I can get it more. I don't think I can get it more. It was supposed to be scrolled down, and there were supposed to be three on a page, but for some reason, Windows or Word isn't doing it. That actually I can come out of read mode, go back in the normal mode. Let's see. I'll make it easier because now all the names are on the correct page. So thank you for pointing that out. I know that you may only be able to see one or two at a time, but at least the themes are following, or the titles are following the pictures now. Sorry about that. So yes, like I said, this Metro Park and Service Tower was one of my largest sets growing up as a kid, and then I got into Technics. Not one of my favorite themes growing up, but you did learn a lot about gearing and how cars and stuff kind of worked, and ratios to gears and things along that nature. So it was very educational in that regard. Some of the more modern day Technic sets are very, very complicated. I actually have a number of them, and I actually enjoy building those, the super complicated, bigger ones. But that's because it really makes you think. Here's a pirate themed set that I own. We also have, then they introduced the Space Police to basically keep up after those evil Blacktron. So the Space Police came around. This was one of their, um, basically a vehicle that housed or transported a prisoner. And then this was their lockup base. This was also a 1989 release year themed Lego set. And so this one is probably going to be one of the more popular ones. Space seemed to be, especially the Space Police and the older space sets, tend to be more popular. We have some smaller sets that are Classic Town. I'm not going to really go into those. And then of course you have the Mtron space theme, which again they turned out to be, I believe most of the times they were portrayed as being somewhat bad as well. Off of my memory, anyway, as a kid. Again, some more Technic sets. This one's a little bit more complicated and large. This one had multiple builds as well. You could build this rally. I think there was a small truck that you could build as well. Continuing on, here we have one of the few castle sets that I own. I didn't really have many castle sets growing up, and this was one of the few that I ended up inheriting. It turned out that the castle sets usually were one of the more expensive sets at the time, and parents or grandparents who usually bought these sets for me just couldn't afford them at those moments or whatnot. Continuing on, we have some more Technic sets. This is a Mountain Rambler, starting to get into the 1990s now, so you can see things are starting to get a little bit more modernized, especially with the Technic sets here. Here's another large set that I ended up owning. This one was a lot of fun to build. I always loved playing with this one, mostly because of the crane in the ship and the ability to be able to, lift things and move them around on the truck and whatnot. That was a fun one. But again, with the Classic Town theme, this set is actually one of my sister's first sets growing up. She ended up getting one on her own, and this was the one that she got. And of course, she outgrew them and just basically gave everything to me. And she didn't have many. This was one of the few, but still one that I have that is older, of the Paradise theme that we can build. We have a space shuttle launch crew, again, Classic Town theme, about in the 1990s era. They started selling some of these in value packs, and this one was one of those value packs that ended up getting, and it has 4 different themes encased in it. So we can either do those one at a time, or we could do those, all 4 at once. It doesn't matter. Some of the smaller sets will likely, when we go to build them, we'll probably do a couple at a time just because they're smaller. The larger sets, though, will probably take a couple of days, like I said. This is another pirate themed, a little poly bag. It wasn't even a box set. It was just a little poly bag set. And this was one of my favorites growing up because it was my first cannon, and as a kid, and I just loved the cannons. It was a non-shooting one, though. They didn't have the spring-loaded shooting versions at that time. Here's another Space Police set. Now this is actually the Space Police 2 theme. So they released Space Police 1, and then there was a gap, and then they started up Space Police again. That was a little bit more modern of the time, and they themed it as Space Police 2. Here's another Technic set that I own, and again, this wasn't the only thing you could build. Technic sets usually came, the smaller sets usually came with the ability to build 2 or 3 uh, items out of it at a time. I mean, you couldn't do them all at once, but you can, like the Creator 3-in-1s, you can take this apart and build something else with it. Another popular space theme that came around in the early 90s was Ice Planet, and I ended up with a few Ice Planet sets. They were. I just thought that the orange. This is really where they started going with the clear orange, I think, as well. I don't remember seeing it before here. The trans clear orange, anyway. And so I got this little ice tunnellator, and then the Blizzard Baron is a little bit more advanced one, and then I ended up getting their large capital ship here. This capital ship was I think the largest Ice Planet set at the time. I don't think they had a base of command. I'll have to check, but it was one of my favorites to build. It actually split up into like 5 different sections. Anyway, I will show you all that when we go to build it. Here's just a little race car one of my brothers ended up getting. This is another kind of classic town theme set where we had the Rocky River Retreat, and I like the bridge, and this was, I think, my first horse set. I know that castle set prior to this had a horse, but I didn't get that until after I'd already gotten this one, technically, because I inherited that castle set from some friends. So this was actually the first set I think I had that had a horse. So it was fun to build, and with the rock mountains behind there. Then they started getting into the Islander sets, which is basically a counterpoint to the counterpoint to the pirates at most of the times were the Imperial dragoons and whatnot. But the Islanders kind of came about as being like a tribal counter to the pirates. So I ended up with a few of these pirate Islander sets. Here's one, the Forbidden Cove, that I own. Again, continuing on with the space themes, now starting to get into the mid to late 90s. Another popular space theme around that time was the Spyrius, which are basically some form of a android / part human, part bot um, characters. And again, I think these ones were themed to be kind of the bad guys of the space world. So they introduced some more of those. Here's the little recon robot that I had, and then the larger Robo Guardian that had multiple different features to it, and that was a lot of fun. We continuing on with some more classic town sets, the little river runners, a little raft, and then some more Technic sets, a little helicopter, another combo pack where they did multiple different themes and you get them together. So that one's 2, an Ice Planet and a classic town. I don't know if they do much of this anymore with packs. I honestly haven't been looked in an aisle of Lego lately. I usually just purchase Lego directly or in bulk. I'm not sure if they continue to do these pack savers or whatnot. That'll have to be something we'll have to look into. Then came the Aqua Zone, the underwater themes, which basically came down to, like this one was the Deep Sea Predator, and then the little Shark Scouts, and then you had these ones were typically the bad guys in the underwater world, and then underneath that is the Sea Sprint. These were the good guys. They were typically yellow and blue, whereas the other ones, and I'm trying to remember their name. I know it's Aqua something, but they had a name specific to these types of characters. They were black and blue, though, typically themed. And then one of my larger sets, again, what became the Neptune Discovery Lab. I have a funny story behind this one. I'll have to tell you when we go to build that one. It's not funny it wasn't funny to me at the time. It's funny now, but yeah, it has a story behind it. keeping going, some more town classic vehicles, a little fire truck, a little boat with a trailer and an RV or a little Jeep that pulls it, a little Octane gas stop shop, again under Classic Town. Octane is an interesting, I would almost consider a brand of itself or theme of itself, because Octane turned out to be the gas station of choice after they started doing like um, promotional themes, like with Shell and a few of the other gas stations. Originally, they formed their own type of brand, and that was Octane. So that one was fun. Another motorbike Technic set, another Classic Town kind of boat with jet skis and trailer and a Jeep and whatnot. Classic Town construction set, Classic Town racing trailer with multiple race cars. And then around that time was when Phantom of the Menace was released. Uh, Early 2000, I believe, and that's when the Star Wars sets came out. And as we all know, these are pretty much the premium sets. They sell for, I mean, I'm not saying this set sells for a lot, but Star Wars sets typically are the most sought after, and they're usually the most valuable as a result. Especially the earlier ones you find that are more rare. But this was one of the sets that was what we had as growing up. Here I had a Federation AT or AAT. Um, again from the Phantom of the Menace. That's basically when these started coming out from Lego. There's a little droid carrier, TIE fighter, and then the Jango Fett Slave One. It's one of the earlier versions. Obviously, they've done multiple iterations of this since. I would think that there's like almost 10 maybe now, even with the UCS sets. They started forming battle packs, which are some characters and smaller model sets that basically were mostly used to help like fill. If you made you had a larger Star Wars set or whatever, these were kind of like the in between fillers that you kind of gave it a little bit more surrounding play and fun. Same thing with this little Imperial dropship. Then you have Anakin Starfighter, the Hailfire droid and Spider droid. This was actually one of my younger sibling sets. I did not own the set particularly, but I inherited it basically from them as when they got old, too old to care about these anymore. But this was a Creator 3-in-1 set. Basically, again with the Creator 3-in-1, you could build 3 different items from the same pieces. This was the spider. That was the main one, and then I think there was a snake and something else for this one. Then they got into the power miners, and at this point in time, if we want to talk about this, at this point in time, I kind of backed out of Lego. At that point, I kind of thought, well, I was busy in college and work and things along that nature, and so I wasn't into it. Like I had dropped out of the Lego universe for quite some time. And this was one of the themes that came out during that time. Here's one of the more modern city theme sets, which is just a minifigure collection. By the time I got back into Lego, it was about the time that Minecraft came around for them. I do have some larger UCS sets that are not going to be in this. Um, they're not going to be in this Word document that I'm showing that's displaying the sets that I own, because we're not going to build any of the UCS sets. They're just too large, one, to be able to capture everything, and two, I don't want to have to break them down again and then rebuild them. They're at some point you can I might show them in more detail in front of the camera. But if you actually go back to my YouTube channel, one of my first videos pretty much shows most of those larger sets that I have. I've gotten a couple since then, but if you go to that video, you'll see a number of those larger sets. They're of multiple themes too: Star Wars, the really complicated Technic sets, a couple of uh, uh, ideas sets that were a little larger. So anyway, continuing on. When Minecraft first came out, I thought for sure, I was like, "Oh, these are going to be collectible. I better get as many as I can." And of course, I didn't have a lot of money then, so I didn't get that many. But as we've known since then, they've just continued the Minecraft theme every single year since this point. So it wasn't like a one time and done thing with Minecraft. They've continued to make new sets for Minecraft every single year. So I know at this point we're probably getting towards a more modern era with the 2012, but this is a smaller set that I can build in front of the camera. Um, so here we have, one of their micro worlds. Here's another micro world, the Nether micro world with some gas and things, and then another micro world with the village. One of the larger Minecraft sets that I did end up buying was the mine. This one we can build together if you want. It is probably the more modern of the sets that I have that is not currently built. All the other things after this that I've gotten are pretty much built, or they are going to be used for projects I have ideas for later on. And I think that nope, one more, and then a little poly bag of a flower cart of the creator theme. So that is about 70 sets all in all. So again, if I stream one set a week, that's 70 weeks. It's quite some time. However, like I said, some of these smaller sets like this one, we'll probably do a couple together just because they're so tiny. But then the larger sets like this one, they may take a couple of streams to do. So if you are, were born a millennial or even a late Gen X, or early Gen Z, you might be interested in these builds. We are going to do them one at a time for the most part. Build them in front of a setup that I have here, and I'm gonna display that setup here in a second, just so you can get an idea of what that's going to look like. But again, these are the expected sets that we're going to build together. That may bring back memories for you as a kid, even if it's not the exact same set. Perhaps it's a set that had the similar theme, reminds you a lot of what you grew up with. On top of that, I had been getting Lego in bulk, and so I'm sure I still have older sets in those bulks bins that I could potentially put together and build, but that would take me a lot more time, and I'll have to do that later if this becomes popular. This basically retro builds as a Twitch stream. If that becomes pretty popular, then maybe I will pursue trying to find more of those out of those bins. So that's basically it for what we can expect over some of the next few streams. At least is we'll start building these together. I probably won't start with this first one because I have a feeling that as I get some more Twitch watchers, that this will be one of the ones I actually want to see built. So I will probably start with some of the smaller sets at first, and then get as they get larger, we'll go from there. And again, each one of these builds would then, after they get Twitch streamed, they will get moved to YouTube. So if you miss a stream, no big deal, and you miss a stream for one of the sets that you were actually looking forward to, we'll actually post these on my YouTube channel, and you can watch it at any point in time at that point. So hope you look forward to that. Let me briefly show you the setup that I have for what we're looking at on our builds. So this is basically the 3 camera angles that we're going to be having. Now, I can change some of these based upon suggestions from chat and things along that nature. If you prefer to have this view up here in the upper right as the center view, I can flip those around as need be. But this view right here is basically going to be the glass baking pan that I have, that I basically will put all the loose pieces in for that set when we go to build it. And then I have a top-down view of the build area, and then an angled view of the build area. So you'll get to see it piece by piece grow, and I think people will find that very entertaining. And as we go to do these builds, it isn't just going to be building that we're going to be doing. I have lots of stories related to some of these sets. We can talk about the differences in some of the sets from then to now, how much different they are in the 2020s versus how they were in the 1980s. the different pieces, how they've changed over time, issues with yellowing, things along that nature. We'll have all those sorts of discussions. So I look forward to doing this with everybody, and hopefully you can catch some of my future streams. And again, if not, they'll be on YouTube for you to watch at your leisure. But that will pretty much end this stream for now. I just wanted to introduce the Legos that were going to be built over the next number of weeks, and then the setup area of what we'd be looking at for what that would look like. So I appreciate everybody's time. I look forward to uh, working with this, building these together, and talking about your childhood memories and my childhood memories, and just having a good time. Well, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. And if you can, support the channel, support the stream, and then also support the YouTube channel if you can. And we'll see you maybe in a week. Thank you all.